Hi guys, welcome back to A Page in the Chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige, I've got the glasses on, I've got the uni hoodie on, which can only mean we are discussing some non-fiction today. I love non-fiction. I must say I really haven't been reading a lot of it this year at all, but in previous years non-fiction has been my go-to genre. Even before I kind of really started to take up reading as a hobby again, the only thing I would really read was non-fiction. So I love non-fiction. I do not think it gets enough love in the bookish community. I like to find the most weird and wonderful non-fiction books that I can. Anything that's slightly strange I like to read, and I've done a few like themed non-fiction book videos, but today I wanted to just do a general non-fiction that I love, non-fiction that I'm excited to read type of video. Just a little disclaimer on this video, these books are obviously very influenced by what I have an interest in. I feel like with non-fiction especially, I'm only gonna pick up non-fiction books that are tailored to my specific interests and things that I want to learn about, which are a little bit niche. So I completely understand if these are not for you, if you're not excited about these at all. It's just like what I think is good. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys. If you guys want to see more non-fiction videos, or you want to see some of my other non-fiction recommendations videos, then please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload twice a week on a Wednesday and a Friday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here. I really hope that you enjoy and you find some recommendations in this video that you haven't heard of before. Let's get into the recommendations. So the first book that I want to recommend to you guys is Amazons by John Mann. I've read this pre-booktube channel, so I don't know if I've ever spoken about it. Maybe in one of my super early videos. This is basically tracing the real women of the ancient world. The Amazons, as they are in Marvel and mythology, are obviously not real, but they are based on something, as is pretty much all mythology folklore. It's all based on an element of truth, and so John Mann sets out to kind of trace who the Greeks could have interacted with that would have been the inspiration for the Amazon women. And then not only does he do that through the ancient world, he really traces that thread through to modernity and follows how this concept of the Amazonian women, of Wonder Woman, changes throughout modernity. And it's a really interesting book. It's a very feminist book, even though it's written by a man. But I just found it super interesting. I love to see more historical / archaeological books for mythology. Like, I love reading about mythology, but trying to figure out the inspiration for such mythology is another interesting strand that I didn't think that I was interested in until I saw this book. It does go on a little bit of a detour in the middle. Like, there are some chapters and some connections that John Mann tries to make that were quite like out of nowhere and didn't really make any sense to me, and I thought were a bit of a reach. But for the most part, this was a super interesting book. The next book I want to talk about, I reread in June for my 21 in 21 video, and really enjoyed it, and was kind of the push for me to start exploring non-fiction again, and the push for this video, and that is A Short History of Drunkenness. I do own a hard copy of this book, but for the life of me I can't remember where I've put it, so we're just gonna film without the book today. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It is a very lovely short little book about drunkenness, following when alcohol was invented, how alcohol was used, not just in different periods of time, but in different cultures as well. He really just does it all in such a short book. You'd think he would be trying to do too much in too little space. You feel like you get a pretty decent amount of information from this book. I didn't realise I was that interested in alcohol and drunkenness, but I really am, and if anyone has any more non-fiction books about alcohol, I want to read them. Yeah, I love this book. I always give it a 5 out of 5 stars. And if you take any recommendation from this video, it should be that one, because I just think that is such a strange, unique non-fiction book that is so short, that if any book is going to get you into non-fiction, it's going to be that one. It's humorous, it's short, it's strange. It's got it all. This next book is a book that I haven't read, but I do really want to. The issue I find with most non-fiction books is that a lot of bookstores don't have the non-fiction books that I like to read, because I like to read quite obscure non-fiction books, which involves placing an Amazon order, which I really don't want to do. So most of the time I never get around to buying these books. I really, really want to. And so this next book is Forgotten Women, The Leaders. And this book just looks at biographies of different women who made a sizable contribution throughout history that were either just completely forgotten, lost to history, or didn't get the credit that they deserved. It just sounds really, really interesting. And so this book has a 3.92 average rating on Goodreads, which is pretty good for a non-fiction. I feel like non-fiction tends to get lower averages than other books, and this book is divided into sections of, and I'm gonna have to read these out now because my memory is not this good. So this book is divided into sections following different reformers, activists, rulers, rebels, and warriors. And I think all in all there's like 92 or 94 women discussed in this book, and it just sounds really, really cool, and I feel like I'd learn a lot from it. These next 3 books that I'm going to talk about all kind of follow a theme of animals / vegetarianism / environmentalism. This is kind of why I felt like I needed to give the disclaimer about things that I'm interested in. Books about vegetarianism specifically get quite low ratings, or they kind of turn people off because they come across as very preachy, and they do come across as very preachy. But I am a vegetarian and I want to read more about why I'm making the right choice for me being vegetarian. These are non-fiction books that I'm interested in. I understand that so many people probably won't be, but I try to find non-preachy books or interesting books, or books that are not just the same old, same old. So this first book I haven't read, but I started, and I purchased this for a module I took called Human-Animal Interactions, and this was actually the module that turned me vegetarian. This book is Living with Animals, Bonds Across Species, and it's kind of textbooky, but I don't remember it being expensive, and it's a collection of essays about how humans have interacted with animals in different cultures, different research that is coming out of human-animal interactions as a discipline. Quite anthropological and social sciences based, this book, because I did a social science degree, so that is kind of where I'm going to come from. Oh hey, I have a bookmark in here. It's my Aladdin ticket for Aladdin the musical. And this book is split into sections, and so you have a section on field work, a section on communication, a section on animals as commodities, a section on animals for science, and a section on conservation. I'm really, really looking forward to like delving back into this book, maybe just reading like an essay a day, an essay a week if I'm really committed to some other reading, and yeah, just learning a little bit more about a module that I adored in second year, but just didn't really get to keep up with it or learn all of the things from it that I would have been interested in, because there's only so much you can do in a 15 credit module. And the next book is Personalities on the Plate by Barbara J. King. I would be lying if I said that the little piglet on the front like wasn't my inspiration for buying this book. Like, who doesn't want to buy a book with a cute little piglet on the front? Whilst this book may seem like it's going to be very preachy vegan and oh, look at the baby piglet, how can you eat it, one of those kind of books, it's really not. Barbara J. King discusses how different cultures will like eat insects, and how the consumption of insects is like a growing trend, is a bad word, but is like a growing study, is becoming more popular in different cultures around the world, and how we in the Western world need to get off our high horse a little bit. All I remember about this book is that it really wasn't very preachy, and I was actually quite surprised by how little it pushed for vegetarianism. It is entirely just a discussion of the animals we eat, their personalities, and how different cultures interact with these different animals and eat different animals. Really wasn't very preachy at all if you're interested in just learning a little bit about the consumption of animals from a more objective perspective. I believe this is it, but I haven't read it in a really long time. Yeah, hopefully I'm not just completely lying to you or selling you down the wrong path. And then the final book is We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast. Now, I am a vegetarian more for environmental and health reasons than ethical. Like, the ethical is like a bonus. I enjoy driving past a field of cows and going, oh, cows, I don't eat you. But like, it wasn't my main push, it wasn't that driving force. So I would really like to read a book about our eating habits and how they affect the environment. And yeah, I just like to read a book from a more environmental perspective than an ethical one, just because I don't know a huge amount about it. I've seen documentaries, I know enough to have made the decision, but I don't have a whole wealth of information. And I just think it would be a more interesting way to read a book, because the ethical ones are so preachy, like they are so preachy. Even me, as someone who doesn't eat meat, I get real sick of the preachiness of a lot of the ethical books, and hopefully a more environmental one hopefully won't be as bad. And so We Are the Weather has a 3.72 average rating. It's kind of low, but for a book that is probably pushing for a more vegetarian diet, that's a pretty high rating, because a lot of, like, so many of the reviews that I read for environmental books are like, oh, it's just preachy veganism. Don't read it then. Like, I feel like going into this book you can probably assume that you're gonna get told to not eat something, so then don't get mad when the book is suggesting you don't eat something. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Sorry, that was a ramble. And then the final book that I want to talk about, I have spoken about this before in my forensic science recommendations, but I still haven't gotten around to reading it, and I really want to now. So this next book is Written in Bone by Sue Black. I have read All That Remains by Sue Black, which is kind of like the first book that she put out. Sue Black is a very, very prominent forensic anthropologist. I used a lot of her work for my dissertation actually, and her first book was very autobiographical. I only gave it a 3 stars, I believe, just because I wanted more case studies. I wanted to know a bit more about forensic anthropology and her work itself, more so than just her life and how she's found working with death has influenced her life. Like, whilst that was an interesting element, it wasn't what I bought the book for. But Written in Bone is very much more biological, very much more educational. From what I read of the reviews, Sue Black is very much going into like cases she's worked on, or specific parts of the body where like how you can tell different things about a skeleton from these things that you may see. It feels a bit more like a textbook, but dumbed down and made a bit more book form than like strict textbook, which is what I want. And so I really, really want to pick up this book, even more so because this book has a 4.43 average rating, which is the highest average rating of any of these non-fiction books. And as I was saying, like, non-fiction doesn't really get the high average ratings that other books do. I feel like sometimes people just read non-fiction just for the sake of giving it a bad review. So this is a really high rating. And yeah, so here are the 3 physical books that I wanted to share with you, and the rest I either don't own or can't find. But there are 7 non-fiction books that I either adore or really, really want to read, and hopefully you found a recommendation in this video that spoke to you. As I said at the beginning, I know these are all kind of niche. You can classify every single one of these books as either vegetarian or archaeology, but I'm a very simple person. Like, these are just books that I am really interested in because these are areas that I'm really interested in, and that's why it's kind of difficult to give just a general non-fiction recommendations, and why I've moved more towards themed ones, just because there's so many different areas to discover in non-fiction. Like, how do you even begin to give a general list? Mind-blowing. Mind-boggling. Just, ugh. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed and you found a recommendation. If you did enjoy it, why not hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. There is no shortage of bookish content here, and if you guys subscribe and comment, then I'll know that you guys really like the non-fiction videos, and we can make sure that we're making sure to do a lot more of them in the future, because I love non-fiction and I would really like to see non-fiction have its day in the book community. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of the week. I hope that there are no reading slumps in your future and you enjoy everything that you are reading, and I will see you on Friday for my next video. Bye guys.